You don't wake up. You surface, the way a bloated corpse might surface from a frozen lake. Slow, bloated, reluctantly. Somewhere, a raven croaks. Your head pounds like it's been used to drum out a funeral chant. There's something sticky in your ear. Don't check. Don't ask. The first sensation that slaps your consciousness isn't pain. Not yet. It's smell. A smell so immediate, so confrontational, that it makes you question whether you've been cursed by the gods or just rolled over into something profoundly wrong. Your blanket, or rather the matted rectangle of wool and hay pretending to be a blanket, is wet. Not damp, not moist. Wet. You sniff. Then you gag. It's goat urine. You don't know how you know, but you know. Because nothing else smells quite like goat piss that's been fermenting all night under a Viking's armpit. And here's the worst part. It's intentional. This isn't a tragic livestock accident. This is lice prevention. In the 9th century, Viking hygiene is less about cleanliness and more about chemical warfare. Urine, particularly goat urine, was believed to discourage lice and fleas. You're not sure if it works. Judging by the scratching noises all around you, it absolutely doesn't. You sit up. Bad idea. Your spine creaks like an old ship hull. Your neck pops. Something alive scuttles off your chest and disappears into the straw. You pretend not to notice. Your joints feel like they've been marinated in vinegar and then beaten with hammers forged by very drunk blacksmiths. Your skin itches in places that should not itch. You suspect your own hair has started its own culture. The light leaking in through the smoke hole above is pale, gray, and bleak. The kind of light that doesn't promise sunrise, just daylight suffering. You are not alone. To your left, a bearded man is sleeping with his mouth wide open. A strand of drool connects his lip to his beard like a tragic harp string. His face is serene, almost holy. You wonder if he knows he's muttering in his sleep. Something about a sword? Or was it a sausage? To your right, a child. Possibly a boy, possibly a girl. Gender is hard to pin down under that much grime. They're using a sheep as a pillow. The sheep does not look pleased. Behind you, near the wall, is a pig. It's awake. It's staring at you. It blinks once, slowly, like it's judging your life choices. You try to stand. Mistake number 2. You immediately step in something wet and cold. It's not snow, it's not water, it's probably biological. You lift your foot and don't look down. Looking down is how people start crying. You shuffle toward the door, or what passes for a door. 2 planks held together by more hope than engineering. As you pass a pile of blankets, something under them coughs violently, then farts, then goes silent again. You try not to breathe through your nose. It's useless. The air is thick. Not metaphorically, literally. You could bite it. You could chew it. It tastes like old cheese, wet wool, ash, and the sour despair of medieval mornings. Your eyes water. Your stomach flips. Outside, it's not better. Just different. The camp is waking up. Smoke rises from a blackened pit. Somewhere, someone is vomiting. A dog barks once, then gives up. Ravens wheel above, screaming as if they're mocking you personally. The wind hits your face, cold and wet and sharp, and brings with it a new layer of smell, mud, dung, and salted fish breath. You breathe deeply. You regret it instantly. Your own tunic is stiff. Your boots, if they can be called that, are soaked through. And your hands, already cracked, already dirty, already shaking from cold or fear or both. A man walks by with a bucket of what looks like spoiled milk. He glares at you. His beard has ice in it. He doesn't say good morning. No one says good morning. This isn't a place with mornings. It's a place with survival attempts that start at dawn and end whenever someone dies. And yet, you hear laughter. 2 women are arguing over a chicken, laughing as it escapes between their legs. An old man squats near the fire, singing to himself in a voice like creaking leather. A boy throws a rock and hits his brother in the face. They both laugh. Blood and teeth fly. This is not glory. This is not Valhalla. This is the other 99% of Viking life. The cold, the piss-soaked, the humiliating. And the day hasn't even started. You step outside into the foggy throat of morning, damp, bitter, and slightly metallic. Your feet sink into mud that squelches like a wet lung. The air stings your eyes, not with cold, but with something worse. The smell of breakfast being prepared. Somewhere nearby, something is boiling. It shouldn't be. A bubbling pot hangs over a blackened fire pit, suspended by a crooked iron hook. Inside the pot, porridge, or what once may have been porridge. Now it's a sentient swamp, a mass of gray, gelatinous grain, puffed and collapsed like a sour sponge. Fermented barley and goat's milk, left overnight to develop flavor. That's the word they use. You'd have chosen plot revenge. A woman stirs it with what might be a spoon or a weapon, humming a funeral dirge under her breath. She looks at you and nods, offering a wooden bowl. It's steaming. You take it. And it stares back. There are things in the porridge, seeds maybe, or insects, or both. One of them moves. You blink. It's gone. There is no sugar, no honey, no joy. The porridge is thick enough to resist a small knife. It smells like sour milk left inside a shoe. It tastes worse, but you eat it. Because if you don't eat now, you won't make it to midday. And if you do eat it, there's still a non-zero chance your intestines will wage war against you before sundown. Next to the porridge is a slab of fish. Not grilled, not smoked, buried. It's a delicacy, they say. Surströmming's angry ancestor. Raw herring fermented underground for weeks in a pit lined with birch bark and dread. You lift a strip to your mouth. It jiggles. It smells like someone bottled a corpse's sigh. You gag. Someone nearby laughs. You're the entertainment. On good days, they chase it with a horn of mead. On bad days, with a goblet of lukewarm bog water spiced with mushrooms that may or may not cause prophetic hallucinations. You drink, because it's that or dehydration. The taste? A mix between wet moss, expired wine, and regret. Your stomach whimpers. No one else flinches. This is normal. This is nourishment. But here's the real danger. It's not the rot, not the mold, not even the suspicious squirm from the fish's belly. It's the herbs. Viking food, when enhanced, was sometimes seasoned with henbane, hemlock, or fly agaric, all technically food adjacent, all known to cause dizziness, euphoria, seizures, or death. But the line between seasoning and poison was thin and blurry, and often determined by how much the cook liked you. Feeling woozy? Could be food poisoning, could be divine communication, could be both. Still hungry? Then there's the bread, a brick-shaped lump of oat and rye, hard enough to stop an axe. You try to bite it. Your teeth recoil. You consider using a rock. Some Vikings soak it in the porridge to soften it. Others don't bother. They chew until the bread surrenders or they lose a molar. Either is acceptable. You manage 2 bites. Your jaw clicks. Something cracks. You swallow, slowly, reluctantly, triumphantly. You've eaten, sort of. Around you, others scrape bowls clean with their fingers. Some lick their knives. One man sniffs a piece of fish and then throws it to the dog. The dog refuses. That's never a good sign. You place your bowl on a flat rock and try not to vomit. The woman who served you watches, not smiling, not judging, just watching, like she's curious if you'll survive the next hour. And honestly, so are you. Because this wasn't a feast, this was a test, and the day hasn't even begun. Perfect. Now we step past the cliches. No horned helmets, no heroic slow-mo battles, just reality. Cracked fingers, sheep intestines, and the creeping realization that 90% of Viking life had nothing to do with raiding, and everything to do with manual labor and disappointment. Let's be honest. When you imagined Viking life, you pictured you, storming the shores of England, hair flying, axe gleaming in the morning sun, shouting something like Valhalla while villagers fled before you. That fantasy dies around 8:15 a.m., right after breakfast, because instead of gearing up for glorious battle, you're handed a spoon not even a real spoon. It's more of a splintered scoop shaped from driftwood, and your task is to scrape old, rancid lard off the inside of a clay pot. Why? Because someone forgot to clean it last harvest? That someone might have been you in a past life? And that rancid lard? It's dinner now. Welcome to the Viking domestic reality. Here's a brutal truth. Only a tiny fraction of Norsemen were warriors. Raiding was seasonal. Something you did after you'd planted barley, mended nets, sheared sheep, gathered eggs, smoked fish, repaired roofs, dried dung for fuel, and begged the gods for fewer infections this winter. The rest of the year? You churn butter, you clean entrails, you cut onions with a blade so small it looks like it was stolen from a child's toy chest. And it's dull. Everything's dull. Even your dreams. You're barefoot. Again. Because shoes wear out and tanning leather takes days. Days you spend boiling animal brains and stretching hides until your arms ache and your eyes water from the stench. The glamour? It's gone. You're bent over a wooden trough, stirring curds that smell like wet wool and regret. The woman next to you sneezes into the batch. No one flinches. The cheese is already alive. Later, you're sent to gather firewood, which means dragging damp logs out of the forest while dodging wasps, stepping in feces, and praying you don't find a dead thing. You do. A fox. It's mostly bones. You add it to the stew pile. By midday, your hands are blistered, your knees are muddy, and your soul is smaller, not defeated, just quiet. You sit for a moment. Rest your head on a rock. You try to remember what your time travel fantasy looked like. It involved a sword, maybe a horse, definitely less goat hair. You open your satchel for a snack, a chunk of oat bread and a half-dried apple that looks like it gave up on life. You chew. The bread mocks your molars. The apple tastes like wood. Across the field, someone is skinning a rabbit. A dog steals part of it and bolts. A child cries. The rabbit thief laughs. Life continues. You've been here one morning, and already your vision of Viking life is shattered. There is no montage of war. There is no bard singing your praises. There is just work. Endless, grimy, repetitive, necessary work. And maybe, if you're lucky, a small moment of peace. Like when the butter finally separates, and you get to taste a glob with your finger. It's salty. It's rich. It's edible. You close your eyes. For 1 second, you understand why they endured this. Then someone yells your name, or whatever name they've given you. You're late for sheep milking. One of them kicked the bucket over. Literally. Your break is over. The butter will have to wait. Excellent. Now we slide into the psychological horror section of Viking daily life, where sleep is not sanctuary, but a liability. Because in a world ruled by omens, gods, and suspicion, even your dreams could betray you. Sleep, in the Viking world, isn't rest. It's exposure. When you lie down at night, sore, freezing, bellies half full of questionable porridge and regrets, you're not retreating into peaceful dreams. You're opening a door. To messages, to omens, to accusations waiting to crawl out of your subconscious and bite your real-life throat. Because dreams here are not dismissed. They are dissected, interpreted, feared, and sometimes punished. You dream that your neighbor dies in battle. He might kill you at breakfast, just to be safe. You dream that someone's cow withers and dies, that someone might accuse you of cursing them through spirit travel. You dream of fire, of wolves, of drowning. Keep it to yourself, because once your dream escapes your mouth, it becomes evidence. Dreams were considered semi-divine, messages from the gods, or from ancestors, or from something much, much darker. They weren't metaphors. They were warnings, threats, court testimony, if necessary, and interpretation. Oh, you didn't get to do that yourself. You'd tell your dream, perhaps naively, over fermented bread and mushroom tea, and suddenly the old woman with missing teeth who lives next to the pigsty starts nodding, then whispering, then muttering that you've seen too much. You try to laugh it off. Mistake. Now half the longhouse is squinting at you like you might turn into something after sunset. Dreams weren't private. They were communal landmines. The lore is filled with them. Men who dreamed of wolves, then murdered their friends. Women who dreamed of death, and then were blamed for it happening. Children who dreamed of fire, and then vanished from the village. Not because they were punished directly, but because someone else was afraid they might be right. And fear is fuel. It spreads fast, especially in communities built on oral storytelling, superstition, and the very real threat of starvation. When a dream implied misfortune, it wasn't considered emotional. It was causative. You dreamed it, then you brought it. You sit by the fire one night, rubbing your temples, and mutter to no one in particular, "Strange dream. I saw the sea swallow the hills, and blood in the water." Everyone goes still. You look up. It's too late. The silence isn't curiosity, it's calculation. Did you just predict a flood? A battle? A plague? Are you cursed? Are you a seer? Or a saboteur? In the best case scenario, they'll throw you in a freezing stream to cleanse you. In the worst, a public accusation, maybe a ritual, maybe an axe. You start to understand why some people slept in silence, eyes darting, fists clenched. Why others tied talismans to their necks before bed. Bones, teeth, little carved gods with faces worn blank. You wake from your next dream sweating. You don't speak of it. You bury it. Deep. Because here, in the Viking world, nightmares don't end when you wake. Sometimes, they begin there. Brace yourself, because now we venture into the brutal, unmedicated underworld of Viking body modification, dentistry, and skull surgery. This isn't about aesthetics. It's about survival, pain tolerance, and status. And sometimes, it's just about drilling a hole in your head and hoping for the best. Your tooth starts to ache around mid-afternoon. At first, it's dull, a throb, barely noticeable amid the endless chores. But by nightfall, it's a drumbeat of agony pulsing through your skull, radiating behind your eye, down your neck, into your bones. You consider asking for help. You shouldn't, because help in a Viking camp looks like this: a man with iron tongs heated in a fire and the emotional subtlety of a berserker with seasonal depression. There is no wait and see, no gentle rinse. If your tooth hurts, it's already too late. It's coming out, and you're not getting numb. They tie you down, not because they're worried you'll flee, but because you will. When the hot iron touches your jaw, your spine will try to escape your body. Your legs will flail. Your soul may briefly leave for a walk. You scream. They say the gods prefer it that way. When the tooth finally pops out, blackened, cracked, smelling of rot, there's applause. Someone spits in the fire. Someone else offers you mead. You can't tell if it's a celebration or a wake, but you're not done with pain, because you notice something else. The people around you are marked. Ink. Blue-black lines across cheekbones, foreheads, arms. Tattoos not for fashion, but for identity, for intimidation, for rituals you don't understand. The ink comes from soot and bone. It's rubbed in with a needle carved from animal claw or fish spine. The process is slow, and it burns. Infection is likely. Regret is inevitable. But the result? Permanent. A man beside you has runes on his neck. You ask what they mean. He says, "I was 16. I wanted to impress someone. She married someone else. But the gods saw it." You nod. You don't ask more. Then there are the scars that aren't decorative. The woman tending the fire has a deep, circular groove in her temple. Not a wound. A hole. Healed, old, surgical, trepanation. A word that should mean ritual skull hole, but really means we cut open your head because you had demons, migraines, or were just unlucky. No anesthesia, no antiseptic. Just a sharp tool, a steady hand, and hope. Surprisingly, some survived. The bone would regrow around the edges. Healed trepanation marks have been found on Viking skulls, proof of not only the procedure, but of survival, somehow. Probably through a mixture of herbal sedation, divine begging, and sheer Nordic stubbornness. You ask her if it helped. She shrugs. She can't remember what life was like before the hole, but she remembers the buzzing in her ears stopped. That, or she got used to it. And here's the final insult. In this world, these procedures, the extractions, the tattoos, the holes, aren't rare. They're expected, common, part of life, because your body isn't sacred. It's a tool, and when it breaks, you fix it with whatever's sharpest, even if that sharp thing is already rusting in goat piss. There's a moment, just after your skull drilling, tattoo watching, and bread gnawing ordeal, when you think the worst is behind you. Then someone sniffs you. It's not subtle. A tall, one-eyed man walks past, halts mid-stride, leans in close, and sniffs your shoulder like a suspicious dog. He frowns. You smell foreign. And just like that, you're under investigation. Not for theft, not for cowardice, for soap. You washed, or worse, you used herbs. And that, in 873 AD Viking culture, is like walking into a biker bar with a lavender-scented bath bomb and a crucifix necklace. Let's break it down. Hygiene existed in the Norse world. Baths weren't unknown. In fact, Vikings bathed more often than many contemporaries, especially compared to the perpetually crusty Anglo-Saxons, whose hygiene routines ranged from splash some water to hope for rain. But here's the twist. Smelling clean didn't always mean looking honorable. In a time and place where manliness was measured in sweat, iron, and animal fat, if you came into a camp smelling like mint leaves and civility, it raised red flags. Who are you trying to impress? Why do you not smell like smoked fish and blood like the rest of us? Cleanliness wasn't neutral. It was coded. Smell too flowery, and people might think you've spent too much time with Christians. Those Saxon monks always washing hands and whispering prayers about eternal salvation, instead of hurling axes at their problems like a proper Norseman. Your scent could betray your beliefs, your origins, or worse, your loyalties. And it works both ways. Vikings had their own signature bouquet, a rough mix of tallow smoke, from animal fat burned indoors for light, stale ale and urine, both consumed and used for cleaning wounds, floors, and soles, goat grease as skin balm and lice deterrent, raw leather and iron from weapons, tools, and those ever-present belts holding various questionable items, and fermented fish breath, which lingered like ancestral trauma. This wasn't filth, it was familiarity. To the average Norse nose, your scent revealed who you were. Smell like the longhouse, and you belonged. Smell like imported frankincense or a Saxon's underwear drawer. And suddenly, your identity was fragile. You remember a tale someone muttered last night of a man who showed up for a thing, the Viking legal assembly/drunken brawl, with combed hair, scrubbed fingernails, and a tunic that smelled like herbs. By sundown, he'd been accused of being a Christian spy. By moonrise, they drowned him in a bog. You chuckled when you heard it. Now you're sweating, which is good. Sweat masks the suspicious scent of lavender oil, which you idiotically thought would help with lice. It does. And it also makes you smell like a Frankish pillowcase. A boy points at your feet. His boots are too clean. A woman nods. His breath doesn't smell like onion or betrayal. You back away. You need camouflage. You kneel by the fire and shove your hands into a pot of fish paste, a leftover stew so spoiled it's no longer food, but a biological disguise. You smear it on your face. You rub it on your wrists. You whisper an apology to whatever gut microbes are now involved. Someone hands you a strip of dried sheep bladder soaked in bear fat. Chew this, they say. It'll fix your breath. You chew, it doesn't. But now you smell like despair and livestock, which is progress. They nod. You're safe. For now. You look around and begin to understand the subtle genius of Viking odor culture. It's not that they were dirty. It's that dirt meant something. It meant you belonged to the land, the tribe, the gods. And smelling better than others, that meant you thought you were above them. Dangerous, arrogant, possibly cursed. So you lean into it. You roll in mud. You sweat into your tunic. You rub garlic under your arms. You even touch the pig and then wipe your hands on your chest. It grunts. You grunt back. You are bonding. By nightfall, no one sniffs you with suspicion. One man even compliments you. You smell like war. You thank him. You almost cry. Because in this world, this brutal, blood-caked, gods-haunted world, acceptance doesn't come from words. It comes from smelling just right. Like smoke, like fear, like the fermented truth, like a Viking. You hear them before you see them. The thump of feet on wet earth, the crash of wood on shield, the sharp clang of blade meeting blade like metal teeth kissing in fury. You edge closer. It's a training circle. A loose perimeter of spectators, half drunk, fully entertained. In the center, two fighters, one tall and muscular, chest like a barrel. The other, shorter, lean, quick, and barefoot. Your eyes go to the man first. Mistake. Because the woman, the barefoot one with hair like matted straw and eyes like storm clouds, just flipped him onto his back with the kind of movement that breaks bones and egos. He wheezes. She smiles. And then she kneels beside him, knife pressed against his throat. A knife that looks suspiciously like it was carved from farm equipment, still mottled with rust and stories. Dead, someone says. Again. They laugh. The man coughs. You've been told stories of shield maidens, women warriors, rare but real, mentioned in sagas with reverence and just a touch of fear. Some historians debate whether they existed in large numbers. In this camp, the debate is over. They don't just exist. They run the damn show. You watch as she stands, rolls her shoulders, and calls for the next challenger. No one moves, so they look at you. And now, unfortunately, you move. You don't mean to, but your feet betray you, nudging forward in a suicidal ballet of masculinity and peer pressure. They hand you a stick. It's not a real sword. They don't trust you with one yet. You grip it like a tourist holding a snake for a photo. She's still barefoot. You think, I've seen fight scenes. I know how this goes. Then she charges. You see a blur, feel a slam to your side, and the next thing you know, you're eating dirt with one arm twisted behind your back and her foot on your head like you're a particularly disappointing log. You hear clapping. It's not for you. You cough. Something cracks in your ribs. It might be pride. She lets you go, stands over you, and says, your stance is like a drunk chicken. You don't argue. She offers you a hand. You take it. Her grip is stronger than yours. Somehow, that's the least surprising part of your day. Later, someone explains, most Viking women weren't shield maidens. That's true. They were weavers, healers, farmers, midwives. But those jobs didn't come with softness. They came with calluses, knives, and blood. Because in a world this unstable, everyone fights. A woman defending her farm from raiders, shield maiden. A mother cutting a thief's throat to protect her grain, shield maiden. A girl taught to wrestle before she could braid her own hair, shield maiden. And the one who beat you today? She trains daily. She sharpens her knife with a rock that belonged to her grandmother, who once split a man's skull during a cattle dispute. You feel like a sock puppet made of pudding. You stagger back to your corner of camp, arms aching, ego limping. People nod at you, not in mockery, in respect. You stood up. You got destroyed. And you didn't cry. Not audibly. In this place, that counts. And when you dream that night, it isn't of raiding or glory. It's of a barefoot woman with a blade made from rust and rage, dancing through fog like a god of reckoning. And you're the training dummy. You're squatting near the edge of camp, behind a pile of discarded fish guts, contemplating your own mortality, or at least the structural integrity of last night's porridge, when it happens. A deep, resonant fart. Not from you. From the elder behind you. A skinny, leather-faced man chewing on a bone like it owes him money. He lets it rip, loud, wet, echoing through the morning fog like an ancient war horn announcing the apocalypse. You freeze. He doesn't flinch. He nods solemnly and says, Thor is pleased. No one laughs. You try to suppress a smile. Mistake. Because farting here isn't a joke. It's a ritual, a symptom, a sign, a socially sanctioned form of divine communication. To the Norse mind, bodily noises weren't just natural, they were symbolic. Thunderous gas? That's Thor talking through your intestines. A good belch after mead? Odin's blessing. A sneeze while someone says your name? Prophetic. And farts? Farts were omens. Depending on the pitch, timing, direction, and audience, a fart could mean good luck on your hunt, protection from evil spirits, a successful childbirth, or the death of a nearby goat. That last one's disputed, but the goat died either way. You remember a story someone told near the fire? A tale of a warrior who farted before battle and was hailed as a god-touched berserker? He didn't die. His enemies did. Coincidence? The gods don't believe in coincidences. Farting was also strategic. Vikings used flatulence in drinking contests, insult poetry, and even to end arguments. Imagine shouting at someone in the thing, the legal assembly, and they simply lift one leg and deliver a speech from the other end. Argument over. Respect maintained. You learn quickly. If you fart and people laugh, you're safe. Laughter means recognition, communal acceptance, a shared joke with the gods. But if you fart and no one reacts, that's unsettling. That's serious. It means they think it meant something, something bad, like a death omen, or a divine insult. You try to ask someone about it. A woman stirring stew gives you a long look and says, "Best not to speak of what the wind has already said." You nod. You don't understand. You pretend you do. In the longhouse that night, someone tells a fart joke. The old man who blew wind earlier tells a story about a warrior whose final breath was a massive, echoing fart that split the silence of a funeral pyre. People wept. They said his soul left with thunder. You laugh. Hard. Maybe too hard. Someone claps you on the back. Another says, "You finally understand the wind." Maybe you do, because by now your gut is churning. The fish, the bread, the porridge, the fear, and when it escapes you, loud, trembling, deeply undignified, you brace for shame. But instead, cheers. One man lifts a horn and toasts. To the foreigner, who speaks the god's language at last, you exhale. Twice. And for the first time, you feel truly welcome. Because here, in this absurd, sacred, gut-driven world, your worth isn't just in what you say, it's in what your body says when it thinks you're not listening. There's a moment, brief and deceptive, when you think the camp has calmed. The sky softens into a pewter gray. The air smells only mildly of rot. A child laughs in the distance, and for one dangerously naive second, you think, maybe now is the time for rest. Then you hear the chant. It starts low, like thunder murmuring in the throat of the earth, then rises in pitch, drunken and chaotic. Intestine! Intestine! You follow the noise because you haven't yet learned that curiosity is a prelude to trauma in Viking society. A crowd has formed near the center of the camp, faces flushed, eyes wild, ale sloshing from wooden mugs. You nudge your way forward. In the middle, two men, shirtless, knees bent, arms locked around a long, wet rope. It's pink, it's glistening, it's an intestine, still raw, still steaming slightly in the cold. You hope it came from a sheep. You don't ask. They're playing a game, a Viking classic, tug of war, not with rope, but with fresh, slippery entrails, greased with blood and pride. The goal is simple. Pull until the other slips or vomits. Ideally both. The loser buys the next round or loses a tooth. Rules vary. The crowd roars. One man slips, lands hard. The other pulls the intestine overhead like a trophy, lets it slap his own face. People cheer. A dog barks and tries to eat the rope. No one stops it. You try to laugh. You fail. Next comes flighting. Someone shouts the name like an invocation. The crowd forms a ring. Two men step forward, arms out, drunk smiles sharp as bone knives. This is not sparring. This is ritualized verbal destruction. They take turns hurling insults. Not childish mockery, but epic, poetic assaults on each other's lineage, virility, hygiene, and fate. One accuses the other of being born from a goat-human union during a thunderstorm. The other counters by detailing how many cows have rejected his advances. The rhymes are crude. The crowd is crying with laughter. You join in. You can't help it. The rhythm, the brutality, the sheer creativity of it all. It's absurd and mesmerizing. Until the loser pulls a knife and tries to stab the winner. He's stopped. Eventually. A woman throws a chicken at him. That seems to de-escalate things. You think it's over. Wrong. Now it's your turn. They hand you a stick. Say it's a game, a simple thing. Hold it straight, they say, while we light the other end. You blink. Sorry. What? Too late. A boy dips the end of the stick in pitch. Another sparks flint. Flames leap up. You're holding a torch now. The game? Hold it as long as you can without dropping or screaming. Bonus points if you recite something, a poem, a prayer, a confession. You make it 4 seconds before your palm blisters and your courage pees itself. They cheer anyway. Not for your strength, for your scream. He yelps like a Saxon, someone shouts, and the camp laughs for a full minute. You stagger back, hand red and pulsing. Someone hands you a drink. You down it. It's mead laced with herbs, possibly poison. Doesn't matter. The burn in your gut is better than the burn on your skin. Later they play board games. You sigh with relief. Finally, something civilized. Wrong again. The game is Hnefatafel, Viking chess. But the pieces are uneven. The rules change mid-match, and your opponent keeps shouting, "Your king is dead," while stabbing the table with a real dagger. You don't win. No one ever wins. The punishment for losing? You have to sit perfectly still while everyone shouts new nicknames at you. The best one sticks. You are now called Bone Fumbler. No one explains why. At this point, you've abandoned all expectations. A man challenges you to wrestle on ice. A child dares you to eat pickled eagle eggs. A woman asks if you'd like to play nail toss. You don't ask what it involves. You just run. By the fire, someone sings. A sad, slow ballad about a man who lost every bet he ever made, then accidentally married his cousin. Everyone weeps, then laughs, then drinks. Then one of them passes out in the mud, face down, farting rhythmically. No one moves him. They just call it evening music. And as the stars appear, small, flickering, disinterested, you sit among them, burned, bruised, gut-twisted, emotionally compromised. But you're smiling, because Viking fun is not about joy. It's about proving you're alive, despite all logic and bodily harm. They don't laugh because they're happy. They laugh because the world is cold, death is nearby, and the fish soup exploded again. They laugh because they must. And tonight, somehow, so do you. You're woken before dawn by shouting. Not the usual drunken insults or arguments about whose goat bit whose child. This is formal, rhythmic, loud, and very, very public. Someone grabs your arm. "Come," he says, face serious. "It's Thing Day." You assume he means a festival, maybe a market, something light. Nope. He means the thing. The Viking version of a parliament, a courthouse, and a bar fight, all fused together in a sacred mess of legality and aggression. You arrive at the Thing field before the sun finishes rising. The air is cold enough to cut, and the mood is already tense. People have gathered from surrounding villages. Cloaks flap in the wind like flags of tribal mistrust. Children are told to hush. Dogs are tied. Knives are checked for piece length, meaning short enough not to kill someone in one clean strike. Not that anyone's really enforcing that. A circle forms, not a courtroom, a ring of humans. That's the court. In the center, 2 men stand. One is red in the face. The other already has blood on his sleeve. This is the trial. The accusation? One man's goat strayed into the other's barley field. The punishment? Depends. If the crowd sides with the barley, it could be restitution, a trade of livestock, maybe. If the goat owner argues well, it might be laughed off. If anyone's insulted during the process, It could end in steel, because Viking law isn't calm, it's performed. You watch, bewildered, as both men begin shouting, not just about goats, but about each other's mothers, past mistakes, distant relatives, suspected cowardice in battle, and the quality of mead served at last year's funeral. The insults pile higher than the facts. This isn't courtroom drama, it's social theater, sharpened into survival. Then something shifts. The barley man steps forward. He spits, he challenges. There's no judge to say order, no gavel, just an elder nodding. And suddenly the two are circling. Swords aren't drawn, yet. They shout more. The goat man throws his tunic to the ground. The barley man takes a step too close. It doesn't escalate, but it could have. You ask the person next to you, what decides the outcome? He shrugs. Who yells better or bleeds less? In theory, the thing is where laws are made and enforced. Chieftains debate marriage rules, inheritance disputes, trade arrangements. There are procedures, yes, votes, sometimes. But beneath all that structure lies one unshakable truth. Might and words hold equal weight. If your voice shakes, you lose. If your past is full of cowardice, irrelevant. If someone brings up that time you dropped a sword in front of a Saxon, very relevant. You learn that duels are legal, but only at specific spots. That curses are admissible evidence, that oaths must be sworn on a sacred ring, often kept in a sack full of boar fat, that false accusations can get you exiled, mutilated, or worse, labeled nithing, a word that means coward, traitor, and human garbage all at once. To be called nithing is worse than death. It means you're outside the society, untouchable, unmourned. You'd rather be stabbed, and sometimes they do just that. In another case that morning, a man is accused of stealing a neighbor's wife. There's no denial. There's no shame. Just a counter-accusation that the neighbor beat her. The crowd shifts, murmurs. A sword is drawn. The woman speaks. Rare. Powerful. The case ends in exile. The wife spits on her old husband's boots. Justice, Viking style. By afternoon, you're emotionally wrung out. You've seen threats, tears, blood, and a man publicly whipped with a birch branch for lying about the weight of his wheat sacks. You ask if this is normal. Thing happens every season, someone says. Keeps the peace. You wonder what war looks like if this is peacekeeping. But strangely, it works. People leave knowing the balance has shifted. Maybe not fairly, maybe not kindly, but undeniably. The gods were invoked. Voices were heard. And for another cycle, the fragile, filthy structure of Viking society holds. Until the next goat crosses the wrong line. When people hear Viking, they imagine blood on swords, golden sacks, and monasteries burning under an angry Norse moon. But not you, because now, on your third hour knee-deep in pig guts, you understand. You are not raiding Paris. You are not even leaving the peninsula. You are crouched in a trench behind the longhouse, elbow deep in something warm and slippery, scraping half-digested grain from the intestines of a pig that died 2 days ago and might be used in stew later. This isn't punishment. This is your job. Here's the dirty truth no saga sings. Only a tiny fraction of Vikings ever boarded a longship to plunder foreign lands. Raiding was seasonal, risky, and usually reserved for the young, the desperate, or the politically ambitious. The rest? They farmed, they fished, they fed the pigs, cleaned their excrement, butchered them, and turned their fat into candles. You shovel slop from the pig pen into a wooden pail that leaks. The pigs watch you with eyes that seem to say, "This is your life now." You wipe your hands on your tunic. Now it smells like everything else. Smoke, feces, fish rot, and a dash of despair. You limp toward the storage hut. Your feet hurt, because your boots, made from stitched goat hide, have been soaked for days in swamp water. Your socks are wool, or were, and now breed life forms unknown to modern science. You take them off. You regret it immediately. The skin on your toes is peeling. Your nails are dark. Something between two toes pulses gently when touched. You decide not to touch it again. A woman sees you wince. "Fungal curse," she says, and hands you a paste made from ash and chewed garlic. You apply it. The burn is immediate and humbling. There's no break. Someone calls for you to help hang codfish on a drying rack. It smells like brine and grief. You help anyway. Then you're sent to the river to haul buckets. Then to the henhouse, where you're pecked mercilessly by birds who sense your weakness. Then to the fire pit to stir a pot of cabbage that looks like it lost a bet with existence. And when the chieftain walks by, tall and handsome and just back from some distant raid, you look up with hope. He looks down. "Still breathing?" he asks. You nod. "Shame," he says, and walks off laughing. You want to punch him. You don't. Because tomorrow you'll be up at dawn again, checking snares for rabbits, helping a woman stitch a wound with horsehair, and refilling the chamber pot that someone kicked over during the night. It smelled like vinegar and tragedy. And if you're lucky, if no wolves come and no one curses you and the pigs don't trample the fence again, you might end the day with some dried fish and not cry yourself to sleep. Because this, not battle, not glory, not poems, is what Viking life really looked like. It was labor, repetition, wounds that festered, mud that never dried, hands that cracked from cold and salt and effort. No medals, no loot, just survival. And somehow, they still sang. Night falls hard in a Viking camp. There are no streetlights, no glow from a screen, no soft buzz of digital life keeping you semi-awake while you pretend to rest. There is only darkness, thick, cold, and absolute. And there is you, wrapped in your louse-infested blanket, bones sore, stomach uneasy, fingers raw, and something you haven't felt in years. Silence. Not quiet, not stillness. Silence. The kind that stretches, breathes, and presses against your skull until your thoughts get louder. You've made it through a full Viking day. 12 hours of stench, violence, absurdity, labor, humiliation, and meat of questionable origin. You've been burned, bruised, mocked, bled, and blessed, sometimes simultaneously. And yet, here in the darkness, your heart is still beating. You feel awake, not just physically, existentially. You're not thinking about emails, or likes, or what time the next Zoom call starts. You're thinking, "I survived." You're thinking, "Would I do it again tomorrow?" Because despite everything, or maybe because of everything, there's something deeply alive in this brutal world. These people you've suffered alongside, they are not happy, not in the modern sense, but they are engaged. They wake with purpose. They sleep from exhaustion, not anxiety. They believe in things, gods, omens, each other. Their pain has shape. Their joy has rhythm. Their lives, short and savage as they are, have meaning that doesn't need to be posted or shared to matter. You, on the other hand, come from a world of abundance so vast it numbs you. You've got antibiotics, clean socks, door locks, refrigeration, calendars, streaming platforms. But some nights, especially the lonely ones, you still feel like something's missing. You feel bored, disconnected, anxious in ways you can't name. You have luxury, but they had urgency. You had comfort, but they had presence. And now, lying there in the dark, you wonder, would you trade it? Would you give up hot showers, soft beds, and toothpaste? In exchange for a life where you belong viscerally to the dirt and the sky and the smoke and the gods? Where your struggles are literal? Where death might be near, but so is the warmth of a body beside you, the crackle of fire, the taste of real hunger met by real food? Where nothing is easy, but nothing is hollow? You don't have an answer. But when the raven cries in the distance, and the man next to you groans in his sleep, and a flea bites your ankle for the 5th time that hour, you feel something unexpected. Gratitude. Not for them, for now, for soap, for light switches, for not having to eat anything that twitches, for antibiotics and heating and socks without holes. And you laugh. quietly, a wheeze, really. Because in some twisted way, this journey into Viking hell healed something modern in you. It reminded you that life is always ridiculous and beautiful and temporary, and that maybe, just maybe, the ancient soul in you wasn't looking for peace. It was looking for weight. Night falls hard in a Viking camp. There are no streetlights, no glow from a screen, no soft buzz of digital life keeping you semi-awake while you pretend to rest. There is only darkness, thick, cold, and absolute. And there is you, wrapped in your louse-infested blanket, bones sore, stomach uneasy, fingers raw, and something you haven't felt in years. Silence. Not quiet, not stillness. Silence. The kind that stretches, breathes, and presses against your skull until your thoughts get louder. You've made it through a full Viking day. 12 hours of stench, violence, absurdity, labor, humiliation, and meat of questionable origin. You've been burned, bruised, mocked, bled, and blessed, sometimes simultaneously. And yet, here in the darkness, your heart is still beating. You feel awake, not just physically, existentially. You're not thinking about emails, or likes, or what time the next Zoom call starts. You're thinking, I survived. You're thinking, would I do it again tomorrow? Because despite everything, or maybe because of everything, there's something deeply alive in this brutal world. These people you've suffered alongside, they are not happy, not in the modern sense, but they are engaged. They wake with purpose. They sleep from exhaustion, not anxiety. They believe in things, gods, omens, each other. Their pain has shape. Their joy has rhythm. Their lives, short and savage as they are, have meaning that doesn't need to be posted or shared to matter. You, on the other hand, come from a world of abundance so vast it numbs you. You've got antibiotics, clean socks, door locks, refrigeration, calendars, streaming platforms. But some nights, especially the lonely ones, you still feel like something's missing. You feel bored, disconnected, anxious in ways you can't name. You have luxury, but they had urgency. You had comfort, but they had presence. And now, lying there in the dark, you wonder, would you trade it? Would you give up hot showers, soft beds, and toothpaste in exchange for a life where you belong, viscerally, to the dirt and the sky and the smoke and the gods? Where your struggles are literal, where death might be near, but so is the warmth of a body beside you, the crackle of fire, the taste of real hunger met by real food, where nothing is easy, but nothing is hollow. You don't have an answer.
But when the raven cries in the distance, and the man next to you groans in his sleep, and a flea bites your ankle for the 5th time that hour, you feel something unexpected. Gratitude. Not for them. For now. For soap. For light switches. For not having to eat anything that twitches. For antibiotics, and heating, and socks without holes. And you laugh. Quietly. A wheeze, really. Because in some twisted way, this journey into Viking hell healed something modern in you. It reminded you that life is always ridiculous, and beautiful, and temporary, and that maybe, just maybe, the ancient soul in you wasn't looking for peace. It was looking for weight.